All right, if you're prepping for the California real estate exam, you absolutely know that property ownership is one of those big make or break topics. It sounds simple, right? But oh man, the details can really trip you up. So in this explainer, we are going to build a rock solid foundation for you. The goal? To help you ace this section with total confidence. And we're going to do it using key insights from Lesson 1 over at Nemorize.com. That's spelled Nemorize.com. So let's just start with the big question. What does owning property really mean? Is it just about having the keys in your hand and a piece of paper with your name on it? Well, as you're about to see, it is so much more complex and honestly, a lot more interesting than you might think. And because we're using that Memorize.com lesson as our guide, we're going to dive right into their key examples and the kinds of questions they know you'll see on the exam. Our whole goal here is to get you exam ready. So let's get into it. Okay, first up is a concept the exam absolutely loves to test, the bundle of rights. I want you to think of ownership not as one single thing, but as a whole collection of different legal privileges. It's really the difference between just, living somewhere and truly owning it. So here's the official definition for you. The bundle of rights is basically the full package of everything you're allowed to do with your property. Each one of these rights is like a single stick in a bundle, and if you're the true owner, you hold all of the sticks. So what are these rights exactly? All right, time for a quick pop quiz, and this one is pulled straight from Nemorize. There's a great mnemonic to help you remember these rights, and it's PEST. That's P-E-C-E-D. Now, we know the P stands for possession, but what about that first E and the C? Take just a second. See if you can remember them. And here they are. The E stands for enjoyment. That's your right to use the property without anyone interfering. The C is for control, your right to decide how the property gets used. And then we have exclusion, the right to keep other people out. And finally, disposition, which is your right to sell it, lease it, or will it to someone else. That's your whole bundle: possession, enjoyment, control, exclusion, and disposition. P-E-C-D. Okay, so what happens when you have all the sticks in that bundle with absolutely no strings attached? Well, that brings us to the highest, most complete form of ownership in real estate law: fee simple absolute. Let's see how this idea builds right on top of that bundle of rights. Let's look at a classic scenario you might see. Meet Sarah. She's got everything: the full bundle of rights, her ownership doesn't have an expiration date, and she has total freedom to decide who gets the property when she's gone. So what do we call this? This is a perfect example of an exam question. And the answer is fee simple absolute. If you ever see a question describing the maximum possible rights with 0 conditions, that is your keyword. It is the absolute gold standard of ownership. You have to remember that name. Now, owning property all by yourself is pretty straightforward. But what happens when multiple people own the exact same property? Well, that's called co-ownership. And let me tell you, this is a topic that trips up so many people on the exam. So let's clear up all the confusion right now. We're going to focus on the 2 main types you'll be tested on: joint tenancy and tenancy in common. And honestly, the whole thing boils down to one key difference. For joint tenancy, I want you to think survivorship. For tenancy in common, think inheritable. Seriously, that one distinction is the secret to getting these questions right every single time. Okay, let's put that to the test. Here's our first co-ownership scenario. A deed says to John and Mary as joint tenants. The key word there, of course, is joint tenants. Now, sadly, John dies. What happens to his interest in the property? Does it go to his kids? Does it go to probate court? What do you think? The answer is it automatically goes straight to Mary. This is the right of survivorship in action, and it's so powerful. In a joint tenancy, the surviving co-owner literally absorbs the deceased owner's share. It completely bypasses any will, it avoids probate court, it's just automatic. But here's the catch. You can't just create a joint tenancy with a simple handshake. It requires 4 very strict legal conditions to be met. We call them the 4 unities. If even one of these is missing, it is not a valid joint tenancy. And here they are: time, title, interest, and possession. Time means they all took ownership at the same time. Title means their names are all on the same deed. Interest means they have to have equal shares, like 50-50. And possession means they both have the right to use the entire property. If you break just one of these rules, you probably have a tenancy in common instead. Okay, now let's flip it and look at our second scenario. This time, we have 3 partners, and the deed clearly says tenants in common. That is the magic phrase. And notice they have unequal shares, which is a big clue. So partner C, who owns 20%, dies and leaves everything to his daughter in his will. Who gets that 20% share now? That 20% share goes to partner C's daughter. And why? Because with the tenancy in common, there is no right of survivorship. Each owner's share is their own personal property to do whatever they want with, and that includes leaving it to their heirs in a will. It is inheritable property, plain and simple. Whew, okay, we have covered a lot of ground, right? From the bundle of rights all the way to the tricky details of co-ownership. So let's just boil this all down to the absolute must-know facts for your exam. If you remember nothing else from this, please remember this next slide. Here are the 3 pillars. Number 1, fee simple absolute is the king of ownership, the most complete you can get. Number 2, joint tenancy equals the right of survivorship. The survivor gets it all, which means it is not inheritable. And number 3, tenancy in common equals inheritable shares. You can pass it on in your will. You have to lock these 3 points in your brain. And I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. You now understand the major types of ownership, which is great. But what about the hidden restrictions? See, even someone with a perfect fee simple absolute ownership can have their rights limited by things like easements or liens on the property. And that's the next level of stuff you've got to master for this exam. So to really master these concepts and everything else you're going to need, I highly recommend checking out the full course and their awesome spaced repetition flashcards over at Nemorize.com. Again, that's Nemorize.com. It is an absolutely incredible tool to get you across that finish line. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck with your studies.